Please welcome today's guest moderator, Eric Cohen from IndieWire, and our special guest, Nick Offerman.
Hey, everybody. We go way back to about 5 minutes ago.
Good evening.
So, Nick, the director of this film is a man named Bob Byington, whose last movie, Harmony and Me, wasn't exactly what you would call a blockbuster. So I'd be curious to know when you first encountered his work and what interested you in working with him here.
We call it a blockbuster at my house, compared to his previous film, Registered Sex Offender, aka RSO. I met Bob in 1998 making a movie called Treasure Island, which I'm told the brass at Tribeca are digging out to make available again. It's hard to get a hold of right now. Probably my finest work to date, Treasure Island. I have a lot of sex in it. Not a joke. And Bob Byington and I kind of hit it off. He was the script girl on that movie. And he's a very smart, funny writer, and so we sort of stayed in touch. He inexplicably liked something about the way I say his dialogue. And so I have small parts in his earlier films, and he kept threatening to write me a role of size, and here he has gone and done it.
Well, what I would say, having seen some of the other films, is that this seems like a much more polished work in some ways. It seems there's an element of a much bigger kind of scheme, that the philosophy of the film is trying to say something about life experience in spite of kind of the goofiness. And you know, for you, I mean, your style is very much sort of a deadpan approach to comedy, even right now, I would say. So. When Bob approached you with this role, was there anything about what he had in mind that he sort of gave you leeway for, or is he the kind of guy who's just sort of committed to a vision and you had to stick to that?
He is very particular, or persnickety, but he asked me to produce the film with him, and because of the more sort of epic feel, or generally the story sort of covering life in general rather than a more casual small slice of life. He also attracted another producer named Hans Grafunder, who came to us from The Sopranos, which was a television program earlier on HBO, and now he's one of Terrence Malick's producers. He's a filmmaker who's been around longer than Bob, and he's an amazing producer, and he was sort of the dad, and I was sort of the mom of the two producers. And I drew the line at breastfeeding with Bob. He's a nibbler. But we definitely thought that this was a step up, and it was the first time that we got a DP, which is very exciting. And I was thrilled that Bob allowed us, because he is very particular about the sort of casual nature of his filmmaking being a part of his storytelling. And so the fact that we were able to set up shots and actually use a dolly once in a while was quite thrilling.
Talk a little bit more about being a producer, because that's not a role that, you know, is something that's been a big part of your career up until this point. I mean, were there any surprises or sort of things that you weren't expecting, you know, based on how you'd been, you know, involved in film and TV productions in the past?
Well, I don't aspire to be a producer or a director, but I've recently done both because my friends asked me to, and when it's collaborating with my friends, it doesn't feel like a job. It reminds me of my theater company in Chicago, the Defiant Theater, where it's just, you know, 12 of us busting our asses to do something funny or moving. And so I don't feel like I'm a great producer per se. I don't know how to do paperwork at all. That's Hans kind of ran the office, and I ran the set, and so I call myself a creative producer. and it was really fun to to be asked, should we, do you like the yellow blouse or the blue blouse? And I would say, blue. Clearly. That was very satisfying, but it was very low budge. I built a couple Apple boxes for the shoot. We were at an airport and we wanted to follow our cute lead actor around, so I built I shit out a dolly of some sort. I had my truck full of tools, so you know what I mean. It wasn't like sitting around with the Weinsteins smoking cigars and like, bring Gwyneth over here. Let me check out her legs.
We'll talk more about that cute lead actor in a little bit, but one of the things that I'm curious to learn a little bit more about is the way that this film moves is sort of jarring and unorthodox at first. It covers quite a number of years in a short period of time, and yet the characters don't age that much, and certain things happen that kind of throw you off. What did you expect about the rhythm of this film when you first encountered it, and when you saw the final product? Was that what you were expecting, or did he sort of throw a ringer in there?
No, like I said, Bob, he kind of knows what he wants from the moment he turns in the script, and so I think that the jarring leaps forward in time have a sense of humor to them. Somebody will be talking about, I just paid a visit to the doctor. Seems like everything's fine, but it was a pretty cheap doctor. And then it cuts to their gravestone. You are correct.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, spoiler alert.
So why don't we look at a clip?
Yes,
you want to
please.
set this up?
Yeah, the first one is when you meet the lead and myself. We work as waiters in a steakhouse, a very Tony steakhouse in Austin. And we're not particularly thrilled with our lives, and some of that comes out in sarcasm in the way we deal with our customers.
Let's take a look.
That's generous, thank you.
So have you ever legitimately waited tables before?
I've never waited tables, knock on wood. Instead of being a waitress, I worked as a carpenter. So I've had to make a lot my rent doing a lot of things. I just never waited tables.
There is an element of emotion, whether or not you could tell in these individual scenes, that I think that a lot of people can relate to. When it's so sort of offbeat and irreverent, some might even say quirky. What do you have to bring as a performer to sort of guarantee that people are still going to feel for these characters and relate to them on some level?
Gosh, I don't think at least in my own work, my mind is not so expansive as to be able to look at the big picture. I think we all still approached it the same as we do anything, and only by trying to play the work as realistically as possible can we hope to bring across the desired effect. It's it's up to the filmmaker to take our scene work and edit it and pace it in a way that he'll achieve the emotions he's going for. But, it was just up to us to try and be as believable of assholes as possible.
Do you come up with backstories for these characters outside of what we see on screen?
Somewhat, yeah. I mean, we always have a secret, we actors.
You want to give us a hint, or
no? It's my secret.
Nice.
I have a secret right now.
Well, then let me ask you this: when you started out as an actor, I mean, were there certain challenges that you feel like aren't there for you anymore? That is, when a movie like this it's difficult to some degree because you're being asked to portray a character who's not the most likable persona per se, and over time we kind of get used to him, and I think that's something that you do very well in for example, Parks and Rec as well. What sort of hurdles do you have to go through to make somebody likable?
So you're saying I'm appropriately cast as an unlikable person who eventually you grow accustomed to.
Hey, you can read between the lines if you want to.
I think that was a pretty accurate quote. I'll take it. you know, those are a lot more fun to play than like cute people. Trust me, I've crunched the numbers. I mean, the hurdles just involve. They don't involve, for me, the actual work itself. The hurdles are all about getting to do good work, getting to be attached to good writing underneath a good director and production. There's a great Robin Williams quote, who, if you get sick of me quoting Robin Williams, I'll stop, but one of my favorites is, he says, for an actor, getting a job is your job, and when you get a job, that's your vacation. And I've always found that to be really poignant, because it's not, the hurdles are just getting the chance to do anything that's decent. You know, like, I did 20 or 30 TV shows that were like, I'm here to pick up the toolbox for the detectives, and that's my whole, that's it. That's one episode of NYPD Blue. It's like, Mom, I had 2 lines, 2 Dennis Franz's assistant. And so just, I mean, even in Bob's movies, I had small parts, and so to get the chance to play a larger role is a great opportunity. But once you get there, you know, luck is when opportunity meets with preparation. So hopefully I'm ready to play, and it makes this more fun than difficult.
Speaking of difficult, let's take a look at this next clip. You want to set it up?
All right, then.
Meaning that the situation is kind of a difficult situation. You'll see.
We know who you're talking about. Your unlikable counterpart. My character goes through a divorce early on in the film. Spoiler alert. But my character goes through a divorce, and he's not too unhappy about it.
Let's take a look.
Thank you, that's generous.
So earlier you mentioned that cute lead actor. Who is that mystery man?
Young Keith Polson. He ran the boom on the sound crew 2 movies ago, and was so charming, they put him in the last movie, and then he is the goddamn lead in this one. And I believe he's in the house. Let's call him up here on stage. What do you say, young man?
Keith, you out there?
Mr. Here he
I think I
is.
see him.
Let's bring him up, ladies and gentlemen.
Keith Paulson. As advertised.
Here you go.
How's it going?
Here's your water.
Pleasure. So,
Check this guy out.
I really didn't expect to be up on stage. I'm actually on break at work right now. I work in a law firm around the corner, so it's good to be here.
Thank you.
It's good to see you.
I'll take that one.
just project. So we understand you go way back with Bob from behind the scenes.
So I lived in Austin, Texas, which is where Bob is based, for years. And I worked at a video store, and one of my coworkers at the video store was this guy, Gabe, that Bob was making a movie called Registered Sex Offender about, which I believe is on Netflix. You can watch it if you like it. Sex Offender. And so I just befriended Bob at the video store, and I think he liked the way that I interacted with this coworker of mine. So he literally just kind of invited me to help out with the movie. And then now it's like a 6-year running sort of working relationship. So,
But obviously stepping up to be a lead actor from being the boom mic guy is not the most orthodox way to climb the ladder.
yeah, it's weird. It obviously wasn't planned, just like me being up on stage right now wasn't planned, but I'm here. I think Bob just liked that I like movies a lot and know a lot about movies, and then I got really comfortable with Bob to where, kind of in the way that you were talking about it being like a theater company, it just was like a collaborative thing where throwing me in there just felt like that's what I should do. We're helping to make this thing, then I should, if they need me there, then I'm there. And then for this movie, it was more like, I think, after Harmony Me, which I did have a part in, I think he just liked the way that I was on screen, and it was like not totally actorly. Like I think Bob likes to mix sort of trained actors with a little bit more of non-professional / non-actor actors.
Dipshits,
know nothings, people with low self-esteem, and so that's kind of how it went. And when he was writing the script, he was talking about how wanted me and Nick in it together. So I had a lot of time to kind of mentally prepare myself, and I knew Bob, which helps. He's this very particular type of person. So I think it helped having 6 years of knowing him and his directing style for when we made this.
So you're saying you spent 6 years preparing for this role?
I spent 6 years preparing for this role.
Serious method acting.
Excuse me for 1 second. Your hair is beautiful.
It's long, right?
Yeah, it's really...
I haven't had a haircut since I saw you last week.
Are those curls natural?
No. hours every morning.
Good answer.
I can see you guys have great chemistry on screen and off.
We have fun.
I almost want to describe the movie as a buddy comedy in its own sort of way, but I am curious to learn more about how the two of you sort of got to know each other for the parts and collaborated to figure out how you wanted to come across on screen.
Honestly, I think, when we met working on the two previous films, we got along well and had an easy friendship because we're both smartasses. We shrug and sort of stand away from everyone else and make wry, sardonic comments about the goings-on. But I think also that we both are good at putting up with Bob, the filmmaker. I think that's a key ingredient that when he delivers scathing criticism to us, we're able to allow it to run off our shoulders.
Yeah. He can be mean. Not mean, but he knows what he wants, and he knows that we know him well enough that we should know what he wants. And sometimes when there's that lag, he can snap, and it just helps to know that where it's coming from is somebody knowing what they want, and you aren't connecting to it. So it's usually helpful. But if this is like your first acting gig and you've never met this guy before, it might put you in a corner rather than making you rise to the occasion.
They call him the Werner Herzog of Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to do it.
Yeah.
So he's not big on improvisation then?
He actually enjoys improv, but he's a great writer, so he generally he likes playfulness, and sometimes if something's not sounding right to him, he'll ask us to improvise, and then he'll glean what he wants to from it, and then rewrite the scene, which is more sort of like a Mike Leigh approach. But it feels very organic, even though we end up generally shooting the script very carefully.
And were you surprised with the way that this movie turned out? After going through it, I mean, there's a lot of it that you certainly can't see when you're shooting, and the animated sequences and music cues and so forth.
I mean, that's true, but I think that we made the script. I mean, I think we did a pretty faithful job of making the script that I saw in my mind. So whether there, I think that we knew that there'd be these transitions to get through the years, and I had heard early on that animation was possible. So I mean, it's one of those things where, was it exactly how it came across? No, but I'm sure it never is. But the movie to me feels like we made what I was hoping we would make, which is all you can, So that's easy to be happy about because the script's a strange script, and the reason I wanted to make it was like I kind of don't know what this movie is. I don't know what other movie is exactly like this movie. And then when I watch the movie, it's kind of like, I don't know what, we made something pretty unique.
So we're going to go to questions in just a second, but one thing that I feel like I have to touch on here is that it's a packed house on a Saturday afternoon, and Nick, to some degree, I would assume that there's some connection with a role that people are familiar with from TV that you're on that they like quite a bit.
The George Lopez program.
Exactly, yeah.
The character's name is Randy.
Not appreciated as much as it should be, but honestly, the thing that I think is interesting here is that this film is not something that I think a lot of people are used to if they just go see whatever the big multiplex releases. Is there sort of a one for them, one for me kind of approach you have to your career at this point? Given the other kinds of opportunities you have.
Not particularly. I mean, that's an interesting question, but I'm a theater actor from Chicago. And so when you sort of take the plunge and go to New York or LA, for most of us, we just hope to get a nice job that we can stomach, that will pay us, which of course Parks and Rec is so much more than that, because it's actually the greatest part I've ever had, and like it's like winning a lottery ticket once a week. But ultimately, you hope that you can get a job like that so you can then afford to do films like this or theater pieces, which don't pay that well. I find working on something like this so much more satisfying and interesting than any big movie. That's why I passed on the Lord of the Rings trilogy, as well as the Silver Linings thing.
No Argo, huh?
No, I mean, Russell's okay, but he's no Byington, you know, and that's what I said to him. And that's why I have this wound healing near my eye. We're friends again. But no, I've definitely been opened up to more opportunities since I got my job on the television program. But my favorite opportunities are that I can bring something like this to more of the public rather than, you know, a more big budget item.
All right, so let's take some questions. Starting right here.
How much of your time is spent now looking for work and trying to find people to work with, and then how much is spent creating work for yourself, more like this?
At the moment, I'm what the literati would call a lucky son of a bitch, and so like last year, I did 6 movies on top of the TV show. Some of them were shorter shoots, a day or a week, but some of them were long. So at the moment, I'm trying to find time off, which is stupid for an actor. Like, quit giving me jobs. It feels horrible to even say that, but it's just because I'm a lucky son of a bitch and I got this part. And so what I am trying to do, I have to be much more selective about what I choose to do with my off time. And I would much rather fill it with things like this. I am developing things for myself. I have a film that I'm concocting. My wife and I have some things going on involving both the song and the dance. But generally, I'm just having a good time and hanging on and enjoying the ride until everyone gets sick of me and I become a janitor again.
Touching.
Yes, hi. I just had a question about how it is transitioning from being this one type of character on a long-running series to now being an actor in actual movies and having people recognize you as being Ron Swanson on Parks and Rec and seeing you on screen. How have you been dealing with that, and just how has the transition been?
Well, the transition, the weird thing is playing one character for so long, because I've been lucky enough to work for many years in theater, film, and TV, and I love playing vastly different characters, and Ron is just another one of those characters. I'm just sustaining it in a way that I never have had to before. So it's you know, I'm very grateful for it, but what I always want to say to people when they're like, oh, I can't see Ron Swanson as anything else, I want to say, well, actually, that I actually do a great many other things, and maybe that will come to pass or not. But I generally don't worry about it. When handed a gift horse, it's impolite to check its teeth. You just take the horse home and put it to work. I'm thinking about coining a phrase about that. I'll get back to you.
Hi. What brought you to Austin, and why are you there?
What brought me to Austin? I guess Bob Byington brought me to Austin. He sort of set up his home base there. I had been to South by Southwest with the film that we met on, Treasure Island. I haven't mentioned this yet, but it's a terrific film. I have a lot of sex in the film. and it's going to be available. Tribeca, I heard, is starting a new channel, possibly, that Tribeca something, what's it called? It's going to be cool. It's going to like pull more obscure, hard-to-find titles in which I have sex. We're still working on the name of the channel, but this film, Treasure Island, is quite something. And I went to South by in, I think, 98 or 99 with the movie. That was my first visit to Austin. Austin is possibly the greatest city in the country. Gets a little hot there in the summer, but other than that, it's inexplicably the opposite of what you think of when you think of Texas, when you're watching the map on election night. And so I love it very much, and so does my wife, and we love working with Bob, and he's got a great thing going there. It's so supportive of the filmmaking community. I mean, this film that we made for somewhere like in the mid six figures would probably cost us 6 times that if we did it in Los Angeles or in this neighborhood. Also, ridiculously excellent barbecue, I should mention.
Hi. Well, first I want to say Ron Swanson is one of my favorite characters on TV, so thank you for the endless laughs that you've given me.
My pleasure, thank you.
But I also
It's
wanted
a
to ask...
quality program.
It is. But how do you compare working on a show like Parks and Rec to filming a movie like Somebody Up There Likes Me? And do you find one process more preferable to the other?
They're pretty vastly different. Something like Parks and Rec, we are so pampered and babied that it's wonderful to have your bottom wiped, as you may recall. But at the same time, you try to remember that you have to go out in the world and maintain your own techniques for cleaning your backside. And so, on one hand, and it's also, each episode of our show is 21 and a half minutes long, and there are 10 regular characters. And so the amount of work that goes into a day involves a lot more intensely focused work on maybe 2 or 3 minutes per week, as opposed to working on a film like this where we're working maybe 14-hour days, creating a 80 or 90-minute feature. So they're pretty different and both incredibly fun. I mean, Parks and Rec is a ridiculous amount of fun. Getting to work with those people and that production and that writing is incredible. But I grew up on a farm, and I come from little theater companies in Chicago, so this feels a lot more like home to me, where I can see all 25 of us making the film the whole time. And we get to take our clothes off more in this, which I don't want to give too much away, but you'll see.
It stays in this room. Next question.
Please don't tweet about that.
I don't know if you know this, but everyone loves your facial hair. And I think it might be the actual reason that you're so successful. I don't know. But
That's a great compliment. Thank you.
in this movie, you had facial hair, and right now you have facial hair. So my question is, what is your preferred style of facial hair?
Terrific question. Glad you all came out for that question about my whiskers. I love having both facial hair and hair on my head that grows rampantly, which allows me to Lon Chaney-like achieve many different looks and characters. And so I suppose if I could only do one thing, I would have a huge beard and a ton of hair and work in my wood shop. But as an actor, they're both great tools, and I'm thrilled that my mustache in this instance has allowed me to ride its coattails to some degree of success.
Keith should probably answer this question.
Yeah, it's not working over here.
Yeah, how's that working? Oh, yeah, I didn't notice that.
Yeah, I know, right? This is like 9 months of work.
You mentioned quoting Robin Williams, so I was curious if you had any comedians that have inspired your work through your career, or if you have a favorite comedy that you remember as inspiration.
there's a Laurel and Hardy skit that I love called The Music Box that my wife and I derive a lot of inspiration from. You know, I'm not a student of comedy per se. I didn't come up through the ranks of comedy, and so, sure, I mean, I love great comedians. I find Will Ferrell to be very inspirational. He understands more fully than anyone that the more you make an ass of yourself, the funnier it is. And my wife, to be perfectly honest, is such a comedy legend. I feel like I've been studying at her school for 13 or 14 years. And I'm hot for teacher. What's up?
Hi. You've worked with your wife in many different projects, but this time you actually are a producer and you have quote-unquote creative control over her. How's that experience different from your other projects?
Good question. In life, she is my legal property. I don't know if you're familiar with the bands of marriage, but definitely check out the paperwork before you get into it. So, you know, she is always under my creative tutelage. She's by far my finest piece of acreage in my holdings, and no, she. It's always amazing working with her. We love collaborating, and depending on the piece, you know, if I'm a guest star on Will and Grace, then I'm asking questions and trying my best to be a student. Bless you. And if she's a guest star on Parks, then we're like a comedy team, and we're just trying to disgust Amy Poehler with our public displays of affection. On this film, you know, when you have a ridiculous virtuoso show up to play on your team, you tend not to give them a lot of coaching. You just tell everyone else to pass them the ball as much as possible. She's just so good at trying to make me laugh. There was one scene on my TV show where I was supposed to stand there and be unmoved, and she just gently rubbed her breasts up and down on my arm. And it was the hardest task I've ever had to take that, to stand there and take it, and not allow my tumescence to become visible. Look it up.
Hi, I have a very monotone voice, and I noticed that you do also, and it's held me back in certain ways, so I was wondering if it's ever held you back.
I think if there was more dynamic to my voice, I'd probably really be going places. Keith, you have kind of a monotonous voice. Do you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, just keep using it. You'll get there.
People have told me to perk it up, talk faster, or like, let's try it with a little more energy. They've told me that my whole career, and I always thought they were wrong, and so I still talk that way. So you know, if you can achieve what you're after with that voice, more power to you. If not, pick up the pace a little bit.
Hi, were either of y'all's first professions, like, were y'all wanting to get into acting? I know that you, Nick, were kind of pursuing comedy, but Keith, were you initially pursuing that, or?
No, pursuing would be way too strong of a word for much that I've done. I always had an interest. Like as a kid, I always liked performing, and then for whatever reason, when I was like a teenager, I got like weirdly shy, like didn't like talking, and so then I think you get this idea of, well, I'm not an actor, I'll never be an actor. You associate what an actor is, and somehow I got really involved and interested in filmmaking and film, and went to school for film, and suddenly I'd be working on films where people would be acting, and I would just think that like, oh, if that's acting, whatever I could do is act, you know, like, and so I came into it more as like I was saying earlier, it was just a way to be involved in another aspect of film, and like wanting to make films myself. I think it was important for me to try it so that I would know what it's like to be an actor. But it definitely wasn't something where I'm not studied. I don't have an agent. I don't have a manager. I don't. I lucked
clear.
out. I lucked out.
That's perfectly clear. I think. I mean,
because I just said it. It's perfectly clear now.
Just as a small correction, I did not, as I mentioned earlier, I never was involved in comedy. I went to theater school and was much snobbier than students of comedy. And then I realized that comedy was a great place to end up in my late 30s. Until then, I just played a lot of rapists.
Do you see yourself going into like being totally exclusive to films, or would you go to more TV work? Like, where do you see your career going after Parks and Recreation is over?
I'll tell you, right to your face, this film, Somebody Up There Likes Me, is available starting March 12th. It's going to be all over the place, and you'll be able to find it on several channels, including a company called iTunes. Is that?
You have a slight accent, but you have the right basic idea. Yeah.
We're also going to be showing it at BAM, which is the Brooklyn Academy of Manhood. This is March 29th, and it's playing for an entire week. Is that what you were asking? I just hope, I'm an actor, so there's none of us that can say, well, I'd like to exclusively work with only the finest film directors once this dream job is over. I hope I can still get jobs, and I hope that I don't care if it's film or TV or theater. If it's good writing and good people, that's what I love to do. And so I hope I'm lucky enough to keep getting to do it.
And still make canoes too, right?
And make canoes and stuff in my shop. I'm making some ukuleles this summer, which I'm quite excited about.
All right, so if you like what you see here, you know where to find the movie. Thanks so much for coming out, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.